Time is not just moving, it is speaking. Every new season demands a response, and the years ahead will not reward casual spirituality. Before 2026 begins, there are altars that must be deliberately raised, not physical structures, but spiritual positions that define alignment, authority, and survival. Altars determine what answers you, what covers you, and what speaks on your behalf when you are silent. Those who enter new seasons without altars enter exposed. Those who raise the right altars enter prepared. This is not about religious activity, it is about spiritual legislation. Altars are meeting points between the human and the divine. They are places where decisions are sealed, covenants are activated, and destinies are defended. If you do not intentionally raise godly altars, life will raise competing ones for you: fear, compromise, pride, and distraction. Before the next season opens fully, these 5 altars must be established. Altar 1, the altar of consecration. Consecration is the deliberate act of setting your life apart for God with clarity, intention, and resolve. It is not an emotional moment, it is a conscious decision that defines ownership. When consecration is absent, spirituality becomes casual and power becomes inconsistent. This altar represents the moment you stop negotiating with God and begin yielding fully. It is where you acknowledge that your life is not your own and that alignment matters more than convenience. Many desire divine intervention without divine ownership. They want God's help, but not His authority. Consecration corrects this imbalance. It establishes God's right to lead, correct, and direct. Without consecration, prayer becomes a request for endorsement rather than submission. True consecration says, lead me even when I do not understand, correct me even when it hurts, redirect me even when it costs. This altar addresses mixture. Mixture weakens clarity. It is the attempt to hold spiritual conviction while feeding competing desires. When mixture remains, discernment suffers. People begin to justify compromise and normalize disobedience. Consecration breaks this tension. It draws clear lines in the heart. It may not remove temptation, but it strengthens resistance. Power flows where boundaries are honored. Consecration is not about isolation from life. It is about devotion within life. It does not remove responsibilities, it sanctifies them. Work relationships, ambitions, and plans are brought under divine lordship. This is why consecration brings peace. When God owns the direction, anxiety decreases. You are no longer burdened with control, you are entrusted with obedience. This altar also restores spiritual sensitivity. When consecration weakens, the voice of God becomes faint, not because He stops speaking, but because the heart becomes crowded. Noise increases where surrender decreases. Consecration quiets distractions and sharpens hearing. It creates space for conviction and guidance. People who struggle to discern God's voice often need surrender more than instruction. Consecration demands honesty. It exposes hidden attachments, secret ambitions, and unspoken fears. This exposure is not condemnation, it is cleansing. God does not reveal to shame, He reveals to heal. The altar of consecration is a place of release. What you lay down there loses its power to control you. What you withhold continues to compete for authority. This altar also establishes endurance. Seasons will come where obedience feels costly and faith feels stretched. Consecration sustains commitment when emotions fluctuate. It anchors decisions in covenant, not convenience. Those who fall away under pressure often did not lack information, they lacked consecration. When the cost increased, their commitment had no root. Consecration invites divine backing. God defends what is surrendered to Him. When you are fully His, your battles become His concern. Protection increases where surrender is complete. This does not eliminate challenges, but it ensures preservation. Heaven responds differently to a consecrated life because ownership is clear. Ultimately, the altar of consecration is where destiny is secured. It is not dramatic, but it is decisive. It is a quiet yes that echoes through future seasons. Before anything new is trusted to you, God looks for this altar. It answers the question, can I trust you with more? When consecration is raised, access follows, authority increases, and purpose becomes clearer. This altar must stand before any other can function effectively. Altar Tuae. The altar of prayer and intercession. Prayer and intercession are not religious routines. They are spiritual transactions that shape outcomes before events unfold. This altar represents a life that understands that battles are first won or lost in the unseen realm. When prayer is neglected, people attempt to confront spiritual matters with natural strength, and frustration follows. The altar of prayer establishes divine involvement in human affairs and invites God's authority into everyday life. Intercession goes beyond personal request. It is standing in the gap, carrying burdens that may not directly affect you, but determine the direction of families, communities, and seasons. This altar teaches responsibility. Those who intercede understand that silence can be costly. When righteous voices withdraw, darkness gains space. Prayer is not passive, it is participation in divine governance. This altar also develops spiritual sensitivity. Prayer sharpens discernment. It reveals what is happening beneath the surface of visible circumstances. Many react to symptoms while ignoring root causes because prayer is absent. Intercession exposes patterns, timings, and strategies. When prayer increases, confusion decreases. Clarity is not accidental, it is cultivated in God's presence. Prayer sustains alignment. In seasons of pressure, distraction increases and priorities compete. This altar recenters the heart. It reminds the soul of what matters most. Without prayer, even sincere people drift. With prayer, direction is continually corrected. Intercession keeps the spirit responsive and the conscience tender. This altar also builds endurance. Prayer trains the soul to remain steadfast when answers delay. Many abandon prayer because results are not immediate. Intercession teaches persistence. It understands that resistance does not mean rejection. Some victories are secured through consistency, not intensity. This endurance develops maturity and patience, essential for coming seasons. Prayer is also a place of exchange. Weakness is traded for strength, fear for faith, and confusion for peace. Intercession does not just change circumstances, it changes the intercessor. Those who pray deeply emerge different, calmer, clearer, and more confident in God. This transformation is evidence that prayer is working even before external results appear. This altar invites divine protection. Many dangers are averted through unseen prayer. Some battles never manifest because they were neutralized in intercession. Prayer does not only respond to threats, it prevents them. Those who maintain this altar often experience preservation they cannot explain, only recognize. Intercession also authorizes angels and restrains darkness. Spiritual forces respond to legal permission. Prayer provides that permission. Silence creates vulnerability. When prayer is active, spiritual order is enforced. This is why prayerlessness often precedes chaos, while consistent intercession precedes stability. Ultimately, the altar of prayer and intercession determines spiritual atmosphere. Homes, churches, and lives reflect the level of prayer that sustains them. Where prayer is strong, faith is resilient. Where prayer is weak, pressure overwhelms. This altar must not be seasonal or emotional, it must be established and maintained. Before critical seasons unfold, this altar must already be burning. Waiting until crisis arrives is costly. Prayer is preparation. Intercession is foresight. Those who raise this altar walk into the future covered, informed, and strengthened. When prayer speaks first, circumstances respond later. Altar 3D, the altar of the word and truth. The altar of the word and truth is the place where divine authority is established in the heart and mind. Truth is not merely information to be learned, it is a standard to be enthroned. When the word loses its central place, opinions gain power, emotions become rulers, and compromise feels reasonable. This altar determines what governs decisions when pressure rises and clarity is tested. Truth provides stability in unstable times. Seasons change, systems fail, and voices compete for attention. But the word remains constant. Those who are rooted in truth are not easily shaken by fear or confusion. Without this altar, People become vulnerable to deception, not because they desire falsehood, but because they lack a firm reference point. Truth anchors the soul when circumstances attempt to redefine reality. This altar also protects identity. When truth is absent, identity becomes fluid and easily influenced by culture, success, or failure. The word reminds a person who they are, who God is, and what matters most. In moments of loss or pressure, truth preserves dignity and purpose. It prevents people from measuring their worth by outcomes instead of calling. The altar of the word trains discernment. Not every open door is divine, and not every opportunity is beneficial. Truth filters options and reveals motives. It teaches the heart to distinguish between what is good and what is God. Many costly mistakes are made not because people lacked prayer, but because they ignored truth in favor of convenience. This altar strengthens the ability to say no when compromise is disguised as progress. Truth also governs obedience. Without the word, obedience becomes subjective. People obey selectively based on comfort or preference. Truth removes negotiation. It establishes non-negotiable standards. This does not produce bondage. It produces freedom. Where truth is honored, confusion diminishes. Where truth is ignored, chaos increases. This altar requires consistency. Occasional exposure to the word cannot sustain spiritual authority. Truth must be internalized, not referenced only in crisis. Meditation, reflection, and application turn information into conviction. Conviction, not knowledge, determines action under pressure. Those who endure are those who have allowed truth to shape their values long before testing arrives. The word also renews the mind. Many struggles persist because thinking remains unchanged. Truth confronts patterns of fear, pride, and unbelief. It redefines what is possible and realigns expectations. When the mind is renewed, faith becomes practical rather than theoretical. This renewal is gradual, but it is powerful. This altar also resists deception. Deception thrives where truth is shallow. Familiarity with language does not equal understanding. True grounding comes from engagement with the word, not repetition of phrases. When truth is deeply rooted, lies are recognized quickly. This protects spiritual integrity in confusing times. Ultimately, the altar of the word and truth sustains everything else. Prayer loses direction without truth. Faith loses substance without truth. Character loses clarity without truth. Before future seasons unfold, this altar must be firmly established. What you believe determines how you live, and how you live determines what you can carry. Truth is not optional, it is foundational. Altar for the altar of obedience and alignment. The altar of obedience and alignment is where trust is proven and authority is released. Obedience is not compliance under pressure. It is willing submission rooted in confidence in God's wisdom. Alignment means positioning your life in agreement with divine order. When obedience is present, spiritual flow is unhindered. When it is absent, even sincere effort produces limited results. This altar determines whether grace moves freely or is resisted by misalignment. Many desire divine outcomes without divine instruction. They pray for favor while ignoring correction. They ask for direction while resisting discipline. Obedience resolves this contradiction. It says that God's voice carries greater weight than personal comfort, logic, or timing. Alignment is not about understanding everything. It is about trusting enough to follow. Disalignment often appears subtle. It rarely begins with rebellion. It begins with delay. Instructions are postponed, adjustments are resisted, and small compromises are justified. Over time, this creates spiritual friction. Things that once flowed easily begin to feel heavy. Prayer becomes strained, peace diminishes, and progress slows. These are not punishments, they are signals calling for realignment. Obedience sharpens spiritual authority. Authority is not granted by position or knowledge, it is released through submission. Those who obey carry weight in the spirit realm because they represent divine order. This is why obedience often precedes breakthrough. God entrusts power to those who will not misuse it. Alignment proves reliability. This altar also attracts covering. Spiritual protection operates within order. When people step outside alignment, they expose themselves unnecessarily. Obedience keeps a person within divine boundaries where grace operates fully. This does not mean challenges disappear, but it means preservation is assured. Alignment does not remove storms, it ensures survival through them. Obedience also refines character. It confronts pride and self-will. It teaches humility and patience. Many want transformation without surrender, but character is shaped where obedience is practiced consistently. Each act of obedience strengthens spiritual muscle and deepens trust. Over time, obedience becomes less about effort and more about desire. This altar governs timing. Delayed obedience often produces delayed results. Some doors remain closed not because God is unwilling, but because alignment is incomplete. When obedience is restored, acceleration often follows. God is not slow, He is orderly. He honors alignment with progress. Obedience also clarifies direction. Confusion often results from partial alignment. People hear conflicting voices because they are standing between decisions. Obedience simplifies direction by removing alternatives. Once a choice is settled in obedience, peace follows. Clarity is not always about receiving new instruction. Sometimes it is about obeying what has already been said. Ultimately, the altar of obedience and alignment determines how much responsibility a person can carry. God entrusts greater influence to those who remain aligned under pressure. Obedience sustains growth without collapse. Alignment ensures expansion without destruction. This altar must be raised deliberately. It is not built in moments of convenience, but in daily decisions. Obedience is not dramatic, but it is powerful. Before future seasons unfold, alignment must be secured. Where obedience stands, authority follows, and where alignment remains, grace flows without resistance. Altar 5, the altar of thanksgiving and faith. The altar of thanksgiving and faith is the place where perspective is preserved and strength is renewed. Thanksgiving is more than polite acknowledgement. It is a spiritual posture that recognizes God's sovereignty regardless of circumstance. Faith is not optimism or denial. It is confidence in God's character when outcomes are uncertain. Together, thanksgiving and faith form a powerful altar that sustains the soul when seasons are demanding and answers seem delayed. Thanksgiving guards the heart from bitterness. When pressure increases and expectations are challenged, the natural tendency is complaint. Complaint narrows vision and magnifies difficulty. Thanksgiving does the opposite. It lifts the eyes above the immediate moment and reconnects the heart to God's faithfulness. Those who cultivate gratitude remain spiritually healthy even when circumstances are difficult. This altar keeps faith alive during waiting seasons. Waiting can erode confidence if gratitude is absent. Thanksgiving reminds the soul of past victories, answered prayers, and divine interventions. Memory fuels faith. When people forget what God has done, fear gains influence. Gratitude protects against spiritual amnesia and restores expectation. Thanksgiving also silences anxiety. Fear thrives where trust is weak. When thanksgiving is practiced intentionally, it reinforces trust in God's control. It declares that even if outcomes are unclear, God remains good. This declaration shifts internal atmosphere. Peace increases where thanksgiving is sincere. Faith grows where gratitude is practiced consistently. Faith on this altar becomes active rather than passive. It speaks, expects, and endures. Faith does not demand immediate evidence. It rests in divine promise. Thanksgiving strengthens faith by affirming that God's past actions guarantee future faithfulness. Together, they create resilience. Those who lack this altar often collapse emotionally under pressure. Even if they appear strong spiritually, this altar also governs response to uncertainty. Uncertainty exposes what people truly believe about God. Thanksgiving affirms trust when logic fails. Faith chooses confidence when explanation is absent. This response is not automatic, it is cultivated. Gratitude must be practiced intentionally, especially when circumstances resist it. Thanksgiving protects joy. Joy is not dependent on comfort. It is sustained by confidence in God. When gratitude fades, joy diminishes. Faith restores joy by anchoring hope beyond the present moment. Those who maintain joy under pressure become sources of strength to others. Their stability is not rooted in circumstance but in conviction. This altar also influences outcomes. Gratitude aligns the heart with God's will. Faith positions the soul to receive. When thanksgiving and faith are active, doors open that fear would have closed. Complaining delays progress. Gratitude accelerates it. Faith invites divine partnership where doubt resists it. Ultimately, the altar of thanksgiving and faith preserves spiritual endurance. It sustains vision when progress is slow and opposition is strong. Before future seasons unfold, this altar must be firmly established. Thanksgiving keeps the heart soft. Faith keeps the spirit strong. Together they ensure that pressure does not produce despair and waiting does not destroy hope. This altar does not change God, but it changes the one who trusts him, and that change makes all the difference.